cooking. People of different identities. Podcast with BHC.
Yo, what's poppin', everybody? Welcome to another edition of the PODICAST, coming at you straight from Capello at Molapo Crossing, all right? The hub of BW creatives. Like I always say, every single time the show comes on, man, come through to Molapo Crossing. They have all kinds of eateries. They also have an amazing theater where you can actually have some events going down there, small scale events. But if you want to play with the big boys and do a big show, they also have that piazza. It has proper lighting. They have a big screen at the back. They also have some sound as well. So just hit them up. The easiest way is to go through onto their social media pages, which is Molapo Crossing Piazza, and you should be able to find out all of that information. Another exciting edition of the PODICAST, man. Shout out to Local Corner Multimedia YouTube page. Remember to like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on every single thing that they have on this here channel. All right, like I said, man, SCAR, I'm your host, and it's another one of those editions which are purely selfish. This is very selfish, because sometimes you read about people, you get to meet them as well, but you never really know how they were able to achieve what they've been able to achieve, especially with their backgrounds, because a lot of the time in Botswana, people expect people to have been zamelad, to have been hooked up with somebody or something. You can never just make it by yourself. But when I read up on his story, I found, okay, this is someone that I think could be a bit aspirational for a lot of young people out here in BW, because the road less traveled, which is what we're all about on the PODICAST. It's always about people who did it that way, who didn't exactly do it the conventional way that we're used to. Okay, so in the house, I'm very excited to introduce an architect, an entrepreneur, a former parastatal executive whose career spans over 3 decades, and he's part of the people who helped design how Botswana and Gaborone eventually looks like. And with the evolving landscape of urban planning, he'll give us some insight into what exactly was everyone thinking. How did we get here? So I'm going to ask him all the hard questions, and I think he's better off to speak about it himself, man. He was born and raised in BW in the early decades of Botswana's independence, and his coming-of-age story is one about modernizing, which is where Botswana is going currently. They were part of the few who were there trying to move BW forward. Guys, I'm not the best at intros. It's always better to get it from the horse's mouth. In the house today, we're joined by none other than Nkaelang Matenge. Pick it up. How are you, Big Dilly?
Shabuyan, Levadi.
Good thing, Rob, man.
Hey, Tara.
You don't use this Nkaelang name a lot, do you?
But
Where did Dilly come from? Because it's a unique name on its own. So I'm sure a lot of people want to know where it came from.
But Didi came from, there was a time, football, since a radio, TV in Tota. There was a gentleman called Nkaelang.
Okay.
Played for Orlando Pirates at the time. And I used to play football myself.
I see the legs.
Yeah. I used to play football. I played for school. I go GSS.
Okay.
Local primary had started that. Athletics.
Yeah.
I think that's
what everyone thinks.
That's what I was. But if you get school, we hit sport, because in sport in this is really. But Dili came from Nkaelang.
Okay.
Because I was one of those players that had flair.
Definitely.
And Nkaelang was our hero.
No doubt.
That's where it came from.
Take us back there. Where you did grow up, Gaborone.
Yeah.
What did a typical day look like back then in Gaborone? Because nowadays it's completely different, I'm sure, from how Gaborone looked back then when you were still going to school. Take us into like a typical day in Gabs back then.
Ronaldo at the time when Gaborone had 3 Tswana medium primary schools, Lesedi, Bontleng, and Camp School.
Okay.
And the secondary school, Nele Gaborone Secondary School. And all of us that went to those schools were Camp, Lesedi, Bontleng, ended up Braho Kopana, GSS back then. And GSS was like, it wasn't like a senior secondary school. It was all the way from Form 1 to Form 5.
Okay.
And that's where I went.
Yeah.
But nagin smulze ko Bontleng Primary School.
Okay.
But go bua nnete, ne ke sa simolola ko Bontleng Primary School. I started at a place called Molapo, where I was born. And talking about names, my proper name, even Nkaelang, I was named when I was born, Dr. Nkaelang Matenge.
Birkenstock?
Because at the time, at the time, I get told my dad was a policeman. And Nako camping, my mom, my dad being Kalanga, but posted Kopisani Molopo. But there was a time when now what flying doctors. We call them flying doctors because it's fashionable to say that. Back then, leading around then. But because my dad and my mom never go camping, the only place I had matlakase at the time was generator. When I was born, I think my mom decided, no, this guy, and she named me after that doctor that was in the village at the time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's awesome stuff. So you never went back to it?
No, it was just too long.
Yeah.
So people that know me very well, dog. From Doc Ngaka.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
As soon, I guess, 6 months later, because 6 months later, I was taken to Bokalaka, and my granddad named me Nkaelang. That's where Nkaelang comes from.
Awesome
And
that's beautiful stuff. I mean, I don't mean to be invasive, but how old are you, Dilly? Because
I was born on the 21st of December 1961. I'm 63 years old.
All right.
And
you don't look a day over 50.
My sister 2 years later. In the family, I'm the only one who lives in Komutsi. Soon after I was born, my dad and family moved to Lubatse. My sister, my school boy, my nephew, that you know quite well, was born in Lubatse. And then my 3 brothers, Willie, Duncan, and Buka, I came like Gibbs. But by then, I'd lived in Pisani, we had lived in Mafikeng, and we came to Gaborone.
Okay.
We get now Gibbs.
No doubt.
Hagele Gaborone.
Okay, white city in the house.
Proper.
Because I always want to get intrigued about that part of Gaborone because a lot of the guys who grew up in Bonobo, Vetkasi, ultimately became like champions of industry in their own right. Speed before maybe outside your Francistown and whatever, and they were able to dominate, I guess, once they were of age. What lessons were you able to learn in Eli Gaborone?
Back then, Gaborone, the community of Gaborone was very small. So small that I don't know if you the defense at Parada. Back then, no was not stop nonsense or scream war. The only place I didn't scream was State House, Rio Botswana. I think the Vice President's house, the house in Nabo Mamelodi or Mukaila. That's it. The whole of Gabs.
So there was room for improvement.
Everywhere else. I agree you're talking about how Neretselakate. Even though Neretselako, White City, Bolos Mecheri, Kotsakani, across the road, nearly people type 5, type 4, type 3, type 2, type 1. Type 1 and eventually But in terms of interaction, we interacted like a big family. Because like I said, there were 3 primary schools, English medium in Elethon Hilly here. And then Maruapula came in our time. Maruapula was built in our time as a secondary school. But you could see, even though Renako across the road, as you could say it, Harry Asgela, we go to school with everybody else. You know what I mean? And in terms of learning with Silo, our families were very close.
Yeah.
Gore go sena this thing ya the divide ya gore ba ke ba tshabantja. Ba bona kraya.
No, unity, community.
Unity.
Yeah.
Now when you talk about a lot of people that came from where I come from, which is Vetkasi, and Bobuntle, that made it in life.
Yeah.
You know, those are people that I went to school with.
Yes, sir.
I think a lot of things were aspirational.
Yeah.
We aspired to be like the then leaders.
Yeah.
Our ministers, because if you think about it, when you introduced, you were talking about the urbanscape, Gaborone.
Yeah.
Gaborone was actually built by Borraro, were artisans in the most.
Yeah.
Nese ba bana le degree. But what degree ba ntlha ke bo mogae bo merenchindo. If you know what I mean.
Yes, sir.
But before that, it was mostly artisans.
But
Artisans. So, the only way to make it was through Sgela.
Yeah.
So, to one year or
Yeah.
And the good thing about then was that there was access, to that success, if you can call it, for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, look at me. I went to Buntle in primary school. Buntle.
Yeah.
And by the time I finished from 5, I was among, the top Botswana students.
Yeah.
Kile ko GSS.
Yeah.
And thereafter UB and then Mahatsi. And our aspiration at the time was Mahatsi. And you know how you Mahatsi, how Jigara, Spanish mates.
Yo, I wish, man.
Yeah,
you ever hear that? Okay, everyone who went out, who got that degree, knew that there was work waiting for them. Would you like to have lived in this time, or are you comfortable with having lived that time? Because right now, graduates can't find anything to do. Like, right now, it feels like the world is ending for a lot of kids. Would you rather have lived now, or are you okay with having
now? I wouldn't trade what I've gone through for anything.
Yeah.
Because the aspiration, everything that we did was always about knowing I'm gonna get there.
Yeah.
And there was always somebody up there you aspired to be like.
Yeah, I was about to get into that.
Yeah.
Did you have any mentors? Was there anyone that you were aligning your dreams next to? Okay, he did that or she did that, and maybe I want to be able to do that.
I think it was mostly my dad. Because my dad was police by the mid-60s, I think around independence. About almost policing. He had an accident. My dad was 6'2".
Yeah.
So after the accident, we did a light duty and he couldn't handle being the police. Went to surveys and lands. And that's where the Mafikeng thing, when I said we lived in Mafikeng, when he went for training as a surveyor.
Okay.
67 to 69.
Okay.
So it was my dad, and then it was my uncle GW back then.
Okay.
Because Howling Wana, and a lot of kids, I think, if anybody that grew around my time were to sit here, they'd probably say somebody outside their family, without necessarily knowing that person very close. Because very closely, those people. Like Nigga mentioned about when these guys came back from this States, what's a market left-hand drive, very open top. And when you're a kid, you knew for you to get there was through education, nothing else.
No doubt.
Education.
That's a beautiful Botswana, man. I wish I was part
of
of
Botswana that we lived with.
Yeah.
But Botswana I think with the as a nation, le access to education, le rona, from what we were, the middle class people, our government is but in terms of economy. Because we relied so much on diamonds. Dudo cake
It started getting smaller and smaller. The pie got smaller. So with you and your education, how did you manage to ultimately get into architecture? Was it something that you already good at? Or was it something that caught you along the way? No, the architect.
I think I carry my dad.
Yeah.
Because my dad was,
because
was a surveyor.
Yeah.
Nobody read it say
Eh.
and I used to my dad spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
If you look at me and think, hey, out here, what are the style from dad? No, it's not from my dad, it's from my granddad.
Yeah.
Time na para dikaki, le di rifi, and I'm deciding.
Yeah.
But that thing, when I look back, I realize that shaped me in some way. Someday I would like to be involved in infrastructure development.
Yeah.
And the infrastructure that I went into was architecture.
Yeah.
But initially, I was going to do engineering. Because next sponsor
Okay.
Our the cream.
Yeah.
So
you were like a top achiever for real, like up there with the best of them.
Yeah, we are up there.
Yes, sir.
We were up there. I didn't go from 3. Just to digress a bit.
Yes, sir.
I didn't go from 3. And in our time, there were 15 of those, 15 merits.
Yeah.
And out of the 15, GSS had 8. I was among the 8.
Jesus, dude.
And that's when we used to have this thing, hello, pasite thata one. The science. Our career guidance was like, the science, so that you could do engineering, medicine, the lot.
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
Awesome.
Let's get 4S, 5S, which is the sciences.
Yeah.
And not class A, out of 28, there were 5 girls. 3 ile Botswana, 2 ile India.
Yeah.
And guess what? We had 100% pass that class. That class A, 5 years of 1980. It was 100%.
Jesus Christ.
100% pass.
So this meant, okay, cool.
Yeah.
You are the ones by or ultimately you will come back and then you will play a part in the development of the country, because it was fairly still growing. There were still some foreigners
Exactly, yeah.
expect feel. I'm trying to figure out which university did you end up going to, and how then did you stack up your credits?
Yeah, I was at UB for my BSc Part 1, which is just 2 years, almost equivalent to A levels.
Can't tell me that bridging course, A levels, because everyone does it, and some people get traumatized and never try to do sciences again.
But it was more like universities out there needed that for us coming from Africa.
Okay.
But the funny thing, every day. And I think that thing gave a lot of us a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
Where you go, it's the first time you go abroad, unlike our kids who go abroad for holiday.
Yeah.
So now it's the first time you go abroad, and when you land there with Sukhile and everything, but I was thought because you've done this, sciences and everything, you're way ahead of everybody.
Yeah.
It's like you're way, way, way ahead of everybody.
Yeah.
But the good thing, like I said, a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
And you ace your studies as you go through.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then how heads are back then, no was not this thing how heads are hey my UK States you wanted to go home.
Yeah.
There were guys who would not even wait for graduation.
So
because you knew there's a job waiting for you. When we came back, there were jobs, not just one job. Jobs waiting for you, you could go Kwana, you could go Kwana. And remember, this was a time when, our government was very aggressive ka localization. So, so the localization, it's in full swing.
Yes, sir.
So it was easy coming back home.
So you then finish up this, and then do you do your net architecture, or do you do the engineering?
No, I did. You BSc Part 1, and I went to a place called Huddersfield.
Okay.
Huddersfield School of Architecture, at the Huddersfield Polytechnic then. It's now the University of Huddersfield.
Okay.
And I did the course at UK. It's 3 years first degree, and then you work for a year.
Apprenticeship.
Full time, apprenticeship. fill a logbook every day on your mentor,
Yeah.
who's an architect proper,
Yeah.
every single day. And then in the 5th year, you go back and you show you sort of take a test.
Yeah.
And then do your 5th year, which is your sort of like masters.
Yeah.
And then the masters is 2 years. After that, you go for the 7th year, which is working a full year under tutelage. Yeah, an architect.
Yeah.
And then it's there after that you write an exam, the Royal Institute of British Architects, to become a chartered architect. And I became that.
Because that's we were here with Paul Mono, Foster Giuliano, and I was listening to him talk about being a chartered architect. For all of that, when it was 7 years about, what is the difference between an architect and a chartered architect?
You see, with the UK system, the charter is the royal charter, if you know what I mean. In a little blessing, the royal, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And the prestige, whether it's architecture, whether it's quantity surveying, whether it's estates, whether it's finance even, for chartered accountants.
Chartered accountants,
Anything that says chartered usually is to do with the UK, and it's up there. But what it means in real life is that one, you are eligible to call yourself an architect. And you are eligible to practice within the UK system.
Okay.
And remember, for the UK being the head of the Commonwealth, it also means for anywhere in the Commonwealth, you are recognized as an architect. And not just an architect, you can set up on your own. You are good enough to actually go out and practice and handle future the assets about. So that's what it means. But our government we romela batho to different countries, Australia, the US, lately South Africa. But we tell gore ha gongwe ha ntse o le da ba gore a re no boela da tleng o dirile degree ba fana ba ngwe ba boa bona ba dirile degree, but ile gore tota by the standards tsa kwa tswang teng ga he. So this charter thing, it's a UK standard. Go US, they don't have that. But they have where you become a member of the American Institute of Architects. In South Africa, you have the South African Institute of Architects, of which I'm a member. And I work at the Commonwealth. Now, when I came back in '94, I immediately applied in South Africa. I didn't have to take exams because I already was a chartered architect. Dual recognition between South Africa and the UK. Remember, 94, post Maburu, the new dispensation. But prior to that, South Africa never candid. But I can tell the standards that they go to by candidate the apartheid.
If you could redesign your architectural education in Botswana, what would you change?
I would insist on this sandwich, what they call sandwich course in engineering.
Tell me about it.
Where you do a certain number of years, you do your practicals, you do your crits and everything. But then, where under tutelage, a qualified architect. Because by the UK standard, when you go back to Sgela for your second degree, most of what you do is more practice and no longer pretty drawings or pretty anything. It's about
practical.
It's more about practice. No, it's more about practicing architecture and understanding what it means to actually put up a structure together. Because when you put up a structure, it's not just the cement and your steel, it's pretty. It's about your regulations. It's about sustainability. It's about the future. What is this thing going to look like in 100 years? You know what I mean? It's about that. And how so see uluho. That's why the diploma, the RIBA diploma. Your pride, because you're saying to yourselves, and everybody is saying to you, you can handle anything. You can handle any building. You know what I mean? Because you've done that practical thing, of being on site. And just very quickly, in the final year, yone e bereka ya mo 7 eo. Initially I work under you, Uleska, Ule, the architect within the firm.
Yes, sir.
But within a short time, one
Yeah.
Could decide could meeting or rates for the first few weeks, and then that's it. You leave me.
Yeah.
Because how can I take it's the exam? Exam
Yeah.
The professors out there, but had this scenario.
Yeah.
And you know what in architecture there's a lot of in construction, there's a lot of litigation.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot of litigation, and you learn about that.
Yeah.
You have to be, so clued at this thing so that by the time I nail that thing, this guy can handle himself.
Can handle everything that can happen.
Anything.
Yeah. So, because I want to get to us, because there's a lot of our institutions that do offer architecture as a course. Before we get back to your story and how you ultimately set up your own company as well. Do you think it's rigorous enough for them to even compete? Because we do complain a lot about us not being given opportunities to design buildings in the country. It's always been given to other people from other countries. Are these guys capacitated enough to be able to compete with the Chinese, with the South Africans?
If you look at the main university, our main university, the course thing is spot on. I get. But like you said, what would I change?
Yes, sir.
What I would change is the practical side. Before you are let out. Because what it also means how you because you are eligible to actually start on your own. You can start on your own, start small. Obviously there has to be some kind of capital, the computer, the phone and things like that.
Yeah.
But by and large, I like myself.
Yeah.
I like both the only two as chartered architects ahead of me.
Yes, sir.
Except for some lady Duki Richardson. Then you know what? I can handle this.
Yeah.
And not only that, you then can go out and work internationally,
Definitely.
which I did.
Yes.
I used to work in South Africa. I used to do work in South Africa because I was that confident, and that confidence had been given by the training and the practical training that I had.
Yes.
So to answer your question, some of these courses are not rigorous enough. Associate degree or something like that. But what it needs to be, it should be something saying within the Commonwealth. Immediately you get that what you are an architect. It should mean that you can go and work in Australia. It should mean that you can go and work in the UK without having to be asked for me. Because hari rayalo eskare in the long run. Ibera hamothabuaka say a product from Botswana. They should respect them. The same way that we respect them, say for instance, or not respect the Royal Institute of British Architects. A guy, I'm a member of the American Institute of Architects. I'm the member of Australia. I don't think it's to do with the fact that Australia. It's to do with within their institutes. What do they stand for? You know what I mean?
So is it too late for us to set up some level of barriers of entry to different? Because I think that's what the problem is that I walk in with my associate and say, I'm an architect. Hey, we don't get jobs. Others get jobs because they have connections. I think that then brings me back to you setting up Nkaelang Matenge Architects. Was the business able to do what you intended it for it to do? Or and when did you start?
But the story is Nkaelang Matenge Architects. This is how it started. I came here from the UK. We were with pride. I come in. I stayed in the UK for 9 years. So 7 plus 2 years and working for a very good company that was doing a lot of housing in the Bradford area. So I come home excited or no. I beg it's very Pampiri one and the white paper. Pampirelli in a Mahara Near House. e be re ha ona le degree o tsena ha o
Eh.
bo C1 bo tsone di o tsewa o tsena ha ona le masters o tsena ha ona le chartered what go tswa bo rona o tsena da so ga goroga the main department in Idira infrastructure development was the Department of Architecture and Building Services.
Okay.
DEBS back there.
Debs, yeah.
E gogluwa ke batswana ba bararo.
Yeah.
Wa mme le matšentse a mabedi.
Yeah.
Wa boraro is late, may his soul rest in peace, ni le bra ya rona bona.
Yes, sir.
So ke a tsena, a ke tsena ka re ya ipona gore na ora ke se ke number 4.
Eh,
Wa
okay.
bona. So number 4 ya teng ne le gore according to that white paper ke D4. D4 was big
Yeah.
in 1994.
Yeah.
D4.
No,
Wena
le
gompieno
gompieno
go ntse bo
santse-
D4. No, go gompieno go na le go F ya no
Eh.
wa bona. But D4 out here was big. So le nna ke a ipona I'm 30, barely 30
Sure.
and I'm like ke a tsena da.
Yeah.
So ke a goroga ra bera ka o ntse re gaiwa dijopo kgante le be ke lata boso ke re kana ke gorogile a re no ke a go bona
Yeah.
go gorogile so ke a mmolela gore no kana ke tla ke tshwere chartership o ntse a re nya ke a itse ya go bona ba personnel
Yeah.
HR HR ne bile ba personnel ka go tsa rona ke a go ba bona ba personnel so ba personnel ba ntse no eish ra bona gore pampiri e o e badile kana it's a white paper ya botswana
Yeah.
e reng ke tsena ko D4 o itse re ke kae nna ke ko C3
Jesus.
notch 9 ke amogela 2041 pula ha ke goroga my younger brother Bukana o na ba form 5 ke mo tsere ke nna le ena
Eish.
ke amogela 2041 pula uthi
Marali asiame.
ne a siane mare ke fila gore no ke ntse ke amogela da
Yeah.
gape ke sontse be ke le ko D4
Yeah.
so ke toa gote no o sontse gore mo go goromente o sontse gore o ne mo probation in 2 years
Probation.
and in my head I'm thinking I'm a chartered architect 2 years e be ke kwala lekwalo luckily at the time how resigner o no o resign within a month gore notice ke 1 month
Yeah.
you know I resigned and formed Nkaelang Matenge Architects ke senang ke sena I just resigned
Yeah.
I was here for 4 months ke sena go hits within 4 months ke a ke vai ke kolota ntlele ne ke nna mo go ne ke nna le buka
Yes.
but I started off the room ne le tharo mo ntlo ya teng
Yeah.
ya hamele ya ga buka
Yeah.
e lengwe be ke ira office
Yeah.
and the rest is history.
Jesus.
19 years later Nkaelang Matenge Architects was doing what it was doing.
Yeah.
We got a recession.
Yeah.
That's when I went to the corporation. There was a recession.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2009.
209. Yeah.
It's only got 209.
Yeah.
I had about 2012.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was doing a lot of work here back then. And the long and short, I was enjoying being an architect.
Yeah.
I was enjoying being my own boss.
Yeah.
Like I'm back in the streets now. I'm back to where I belong.
We're gonna get
And
back
I
to you being back in the
really
streets.
enjoying that.
Because I'm like, all right, how were you able to make your initial money? You know, because right now, you know, it's hard for people to get into business because Barry, procurement was always very difficult back then.
Yeah.
You know, how were you able to survive in the industry? You know, was it
Back then-
private work? Was it government work?
How level 94?
Yeah.
South Africa was happening.
Yeah.
There was a lot of excitement.
Yeah.
Ka batho ba bantši. And I immediately the brother set up in South Africa.
Oh, okay.
And at the time, South Africa, you couldn't do work in a province.
Yeah.
There's no presence.
Yeah.
So we had an office for Northwest.
Oh.
We had an office called Kimberley,
Okay.
which is the Northern Cape. We had an office in Joburg, which is Gauteng.
Yeah.
And then we had offices Kai.
Yeah.
So we used to go around and just do lots of work.
Yeah.
And make lots of money.
Yeah.
I don't know if you recall. That's the time when I started driving my TT. the BMW S11. Same year.
Yeah.
I could afford. It was that easy. But it was easy because at the time, there was a lot of money that was going into infrastructure development.
Okay.
Ditsela, digela, dibakangwa. Ke nako ya di community junior.
Community junior secondary, yes, sir.
Di simolola go nna by applying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was active
There
work.
was a lot of work.
There was
for
a lot of
us, citizens and even non-citizens.
Because I think that's always what people wonder on, or, you know, financing. But what do you think a lot of other people got wrong? Because I'm sure you were seeing your counterparts as well. People who did do well, but when it came onto the field, it didn't connect as much as it did for you, because you were much more, I guess, mind was open.
Yeah.
What do you think other guys got wrong?
I think part of what we did wrong, because like I was saying, a lot of money was coming into development.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of work for everybody.
Yeah.
But with that work comes delivery.
Yeah.
And that delivery, and it gives you a lot of confidence even to go out and venture where others have not. Like you opening up in Joburg, opening up in Mafikeng,
Because
opening up in Kimberley.
Yeah.
And talking about Kimberley, we a place called Google.
Yeah.
Lily Fontaine.
Yeah.
You fly to Cape Town. From Cape Town, you fly to Springbok. From Springbok, you don't know parliamentarians. Mosekake. Wahira Spanish. So I think it took happy for it. Oscar Kanya you could only do work motor here, fancy architecture and stuff like that. Because now I used to do, and a lot of guys, we used to do body gala, body kaulong.
Yeah.
I knew Hansi Kahospana Hans.
Yeah.
Places like Hansi. I knew places like Kaudwani, Sorila Toro, the whole country. So I think what we did wrong in Anahore, people became choosy.
Yeah.
Now can be associated with this kind of architecture, which is the architecture about our people.
But I'm on a level, so I'm not going to touch schools.
But when I did so much work, I didn't see the guy where I know. Nagesha.
Do you? Come on, where were we, dog? That's a beautiful time.
Yeah.
I want to now get into then the obsession with international companies now.
Yeah.
Because like you say, it was like manna from heaven. Work was coming in. Botswana was more pro Botswana work and stuff. What changed? How did we switch to now? And now Botswana, and it's mostly Chinese companies. It's mostly companies that are not from Botswana.
Yeah.
But
I think as
let me ask it in a more difficult way. Was it us? Did we start doing bad work?
No, it was never about bad work. It was more to do with like we talked about nearly 30. Now I was 32 in 1994. 32, and I was doing that by 96. I was like flying. By 2002, when I bought the TT and the
drop,
the drop top, we were flying. So it's not really but I think in the sort of like in the bigger scheme of things, in generally, we were doing so well by comparison. So I think a very similar Libya because we are very vocal. This thing no why that friction that friction. There was a time Kenya for a very long time. The Chinese for a very long time. The Caribbeans for a very long time. And that's when things became their turn, where Botswana were sort of like you got about push back. But I get what's the I can mention their names was inspiring. How lebella that these things date back before us. These guys were the pioneers. But the funny thing happened over and above was that much as when they went outside the country, like Remusenyan, when he did Melrose Arc, I don't know if you go to Joburg and you know Melrose Arc. Was done by Musenyan.
So guys, we're now at a level where they're capacitated to even do those type of jobs. Like you're saying,
outside the country.
You guys are already now active outside. So what's there to hate about that? Isn't that part of it? Especially because these are private companies.
Yeah.
And the country, I'm sure, even at that time, they were looking for diversification of the economy.
Yeah.
Why hate on these young boys?
No, I think, there was just something. There was just this thing. The movement, Zaka one. And only that, you become more independent. Independent of the state. And you know what that means?
You can make decisions for yourself.
Yes.
And you can affect the state.
When I change your uso.
It messes with me a lot because in our country this becomes our very own undoing. In that you have such intelligent people, but there seems to be a ceiling for how much power certain individuals are supposed to have, whereas naturalized Botswana sometimes get away with it as compared to the native Botswana. So I don't know if you can speak to that. Are we our own worst enemy when it comes to...
I think now I'm going to be bold and say, yes, we are our own worst enemy. Kung ha re tsena into positions tse di ha godimo e be ka re yanong ha re lemoge gore nna kana ke Motswana ska. And if I believe in myself as much as I do, I don't see any reasons why I can't believe in you. I can't understand why I can't believe in you. Like o hese guy kana ne re hela ile gore ha gongwe our brothers ba bangwe ba hela ile gore gora a itshwaraganya le motho o tswang kone. And nako ene ke le ko ne ka resign teng ko go Robente. I came in at the same time as some expatriates. And fortunately for me, these guys come from the UK. One of them was a Zambian guy with a UK residence. I think he was a natural. UK medium Zambia.
Yes, sir.
So he comes here as an expatriate. He's ahead of me. And then there are two guys higher national diploma, which is a degree lower than what we had. They are more like draftsmen, like very senior draftsmen. And those are the things I think this thing any the expatriates in as an expatriate, you know if this guy's from the UK or from the US, you are at par. But you know what? Why hit that? Because I'm an expatriate. I won't try. So now if I were to change things, I do like go Dubai. I understand go Dubai, but being high, when it comes to tax, you are more tax. How can I hit Dubai guy? How can we hit a salary? This paraspan is what? This is more. I won't try. Look, we should do that. We should turn this thing. But what I but I'm less than you do. Because kind of what about this to go away. That's it over the opportunity. Because how you come you know, even with my experience at 63, I've been in the industry more than 8 years.
Yes, sir.
But there's no way they're going to treat me any different from other architects in the UK.
All right. I think my next question, because of your vast experience, I mean, if I was to ask you about all of the things you've done, you'll stay here all day. I want to talk to your vast experience with your name, knowing about developing infrastructure for the country, for individuals. How do architects in Botswana position themselves to be more central and not like more peripheral? I mean, we can't keep having it this way and sit there and just complain. How can they better position themselves?
I think now from where I sit, and I always say this to my colleagues, I think over the years we've allowed ourselves to be pushed to the periphery. Because we are creators, we create out of nothing. What it is that you see.
We actually had someone from Business Botswana. Architects, everyone who create something from scratch.
Yeah.
How we work at GDP or ya ediwa. How to work at the creative industry. Go te e khaogane yana. Go te wa le rona le mongwe le go create everything from scratch.
How we are yalo. Kana the construction industry. E leng gore tota under normal circumstances, if it's not roads or civils, e leng gore go irwa the airport, go irwa a lot of cement.
Yeah.
It's usually led by architects.
Yeah.
But for some reason, we've abdicated our responsibility. I don't know easy money and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You get a situation where some developers believe that they can actually develop cityscapes without necessarily having architects proper. For some odd reason, contractors but overtaking. Contractors, can I get a contractor? Contractor, I get a mutuaha. You are now supervisor. Well, I'm supervisor because this dream that becomes a tangible thing that you can touch. It's a mohoro. Now we dream the future. Yeah, how this thing, got to be what it is. Haki Hasakayela, the guy that owns this place is one of those guys. Now for me, is my hero because he goes out there and takes it and says, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to do it my way. Not necessarily, no, my way is the best, but the way it's supposed to be done. Led by an architect, led by, us the creatives. We create out of nothing. We dream out of nothing. But then those dreams are then passed on to draftsmen to draw and say, this is what I'm thinking about. And then you bring others, interior designers, you bring engineers to say, I would like this to, and the engineer will advise on me, how we buy, and I can now about but at the end of the day, it is the architect's vision that you then see as a finished product.
Yes, sir.
So, what is important? What is it that we can do?
Yes, sir.
We are in the periphery. Now, right now, what I'm doing is, I've decided, I'm going to create my own work. I'm creating my own work. I'm not relying, okay, Scar, which is a product.
Yes, sir.
But I'm not going to rely on you, tender because the tendering system I think Ebola because with the tendering for instance, just for argument's sake, if you were to think let's do something that is similar to this in an amphitheater, in the ambience that we have here somewhere, guess what's going to happen if it's a tender? The last time I checked, to get my practices.
You're back in the game, guy.
Back in the game. There are about 144 individuals and companies all together. They don't want to get architects only. Now, a tender, are you expecting 144 entries to the architects? Another number are the engineers. Another number are the youths. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with tendering. Where Spachi than in the private sector. Just go to South Africa and see how developments are taking place. And you know why they are happening the way they are? It's because the private sector is actually leading and not government in terms of what you see. There was the Santins of South Africa, just across Harastimberg. Every time you drive, 6 months later, major positive development. It's because it's the private sector. So
what about the PPP in the past? I've heard this word, especially in Molapo design. PPP. What about Kavariwa area Who comes up with these PPPs? Isn't it supposed to come from the people in the private sector saying, hey, for community? How did these things work?
That's what I'm saying. Largely, right now, the consumer products, the side this with this tendering thing, can't scar in terms of delivery, the value that he could bring to the table, it's 10 times bigger than what I could bring.
Yeah.
But guess what? Nna ke a go tsena ka brown envelope wa bona.
Yeah.
And I get say,
Yeah.
o tla bo go take you win again.
Yeah.
And then what then happens? What then happens? The product ke ra e bona, yo nna ra ipotsa ka ntle ga te go e. And then ha e ntse yalo, e be re blame man. E be re blame the all and sundry. All architect, the architect is useless. What are ba pala go hira CBD?
Yeah.
Yeah. I get.
Yeah.
O tabe CBD ntse ga ntse o bo ipotsa hore ka nte mme go mo CBD mo. Which one of these buildings was actually done by a local?
Yeah.
And CBD started in 1994.
Yeah.
All these years.
Yeah.
We put out but one about guy to do this.
thing.
One tlhaloganyo. Ba guy go dira this thing. And it's all hela ka gore o motswana mmala wa gago kana o mang wa gago. But o le motswana o leng gore you are capable of doing these things.
Great work.
The other thing ke gore you know when you go malatsing I drive into the bushes,
Yeah.
especially ha ke tsamaya ke ya north kana ke ya tlateng go south wa bona gore batho ba gang di farmhouse gompieno they are doing beautiful work.
Ba lwa ya no.
Ba lo batswana mme ke batswana
Eh.
again. And then you wonder gore kante batho ba ntse ba le kae.
Because the creativity, I mean, even if you go into like little Omo
Hey.
Oditani, kgona go bona ntlo ena le frame e ngwana mo e le
O bo ipotsa
colorful.
re ntse re le kae.
Re ntse re le 2.5 ho hela. Batho ya no way batho ba ke le meet. Ha
Yeah.
ba tsena mo bo block 16 mo in some of these. So you can tell
Yeah.
the creativity is there.
It's there, yeah.
But then ke kganya gore and that's what's depressing about being creative.
It needs to be supported.
Yeah.
And it needs to be supported at the highest level. To the extent how we support her from the highest level. What he basically say, you know what? Let me let my people, which is Batswana, mo go teng ya e irwa ke bo ska le bo dili le bo mang le bo again.
Yeah.
You're gonna make mistakes.
Yeah.
But that's how countries say they go pili, di tlhomile pele. That's how they got where they are. You know, hey, they did some serious bad work.
Yeah.
But with time, they became what they are.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and how the international competitions because they were supported from within their countries.
Yes, sir.
They always win competitions.
Definitely.
Hey.
But we're going to go into the more controversial topic. You took up a senior role at the Botswana Housing Corporation recently, and then it ended how it ended. What motivated you to move into parastatal leadership?
Like I said earlier, the recession year 2009, it's a my rebullious year over 2013.
Yeah.
And it was not Spanish out here. The Spanish Batswana, mostly Batswana consultants, whether engineer, architect, surveyor.
Yeah.
This was the time in Irira, mostly the backlog with education.
Hey.
Like it was at the primary school, where we were building. My teacher had 5 more schooling. Okay. So I don't matter mararo ba share. We were 2 more, so that all together every teacher has share. We're doing away with pit latrines. As a first phase. The phase then the computer labs, the dining hall, the administration block, administration kind of go the principal. But no recession effective from Friday this project is suspended. Kana we cherry on a bafana over hirile proper architects proper one Majita baspana technicians baspana put them no project it's again that's what happened.
Jesus.
So that's what happened for me. So in 2012 we also an advert go BHC 2012 about deputy CEO in charge of operations.
Okay.
Now operations go BHC in a area where you're going to be leading developments, buildings and everything.
Okay.
So for me, it was just moving from what I was doing
Yeah.
Because I'd grown to a point where I was now
Yeah.
But I don't have to be the one running around
All the time.
Now all I have to do is the image, running around, go to South Africa, go to Cape Town, go to wherever, to say we can do this.
Yes, sir.
But definitely. And because of what I believe in now, I can tell you, Scar, in all the time that I was running DMA before I've never had mutotso nkontle ke mohiri le ke hira ba Malaysia Batswana I mentored Batswana ne ke dumela ba Batswaneng thata and anka go ha maina ba tswa le gore ba hitile wa bona hore ya ke bo because they are the ones ba le gore now ke bona ba tshwereng industry to some extent. But I really believe in training.
Yes, sir.
People like Bomusianyane,
Yes, sir.
And then I decided, no, I'm going to give this to, and I believe Mubajani.
Yes, sir.
I really also, officer never. And even going forward, it will never be like that.
I've always wanted to understand, and I think you are the perfect person to explain it to me. Your name, the corporation. Is it supposed to build houses for all Botswana? Like, what are the key KPIs? Like, what are the key? What does it do?
No, I think how level the corporation enacted in 1971. Like Molapo, you're gonna have a corporation, and it's. Before that, PWD, Public Works Department.
Okay.
You know, my type 1, my type what. So, Corporation Benelwa, Sikili Samato. It's a motor. I understand they existing. For the Cheledi Sa. My carrier, Lore, Tota, Etehela, Batu, Bailongore, Tata, Baku, the lower end.
Yeah.
It's in one Nayana when we take a lesson. We got here. Okanahore, Orekent, Bangaita, Hore, position, my dear, at Senasin. But by and large, me, to be fair to the corporation, it has done very well under the circumstances because can I get any human? I get very more than 30 years ago. You want to know. Gaza, we patapate, and we patapate again. We patapate again. What's near the Zenoniano? The Zenoniano didn't anything out here. That's it. So, Batswana Hansi, Santa Namo Hopolo, Abolo, Wa Operasi, Elia Bolo, and then how it goes Gela, Wa Playa, how it has Gela or a guy. I got Rinzi Hetiano, happy. There are other players, which is the private sector. And not for me, that's beautiful.
Yes, sir.
The fact that how the private developers are doing large numbers, it's accommodation. But the downside, I think, the majority, had you only grown about as for me, the downside, I think. Because when you go to site, when you go to site, go to any site. How on a site there? Who check? The people that are doing the job, the electrician, the plumber, it's just that
the plasterer, the tile,
it's just that ownership vests somewhere else. But the people that are actually doing that tangible work, and how you're not old enough to remember Botswana construction. I
remember
the late and all these guys are late, But SP construction, is late. But those were companies that needs a whole lot to the highest. When I did compete at level Marian Roberts. If you remember.
Yes, sir.
I get.
Yes, sir.
But then what happened? I get. Can I go move? Nakon Shibeza Hor. All it's saying to me is it's just for the man, Otsala Lemang, cousin ya ga mang for me is not relevant.
So
What is relevant ke gore o bone gore no go kgonagala gore Motswana a goroge bo pabala mfana eno mpabala late mfana wa pabala ga late me ke mo motho ha no bala form 5 na bala form 1.
Yes, sir.
But that guy got to a point where he was competing with the best.
Yeah.
But then what happened?
So what are the structural challenges that you felt you inherited when you arrived at BHC? I also want to figure out one or even with the contractors, maybe the artisans ke Batswana. The contractors usually ke Batswana le bone kana
Me when I go
these days
go prasing. Go re hela ba batho ba go dumela ba gana go dumela. Jobs 30 million for the time e ke gorogileng kwa. Jobs 30 million and below. Ne le tsa Batswana uthia.
yeah.
Batswana. But ha ke tloga ke vaya. So ke tsa Batswana.
Yeah.
But guess what? Wena re go ga job. A ke o le Motswana. Wa e regisa. Ha o sna go e regisa setšhaba se bona mang go site ha se bone wena. Me go kwadido Scar and Sons company. Di job tse di hiwa Batswana so 100%
Yeah.
citizens.
Yeah.
But then there's the element ya gore kana citizen go twa motho tshwere mo mang.
Hey.
But eo ga re ke ra bua thata ka re a kere o mangwe ga hiwe gore o mangwe ya ke go sele
Yeah.
ditiro di go sele but how so tshwere o mangwe Motswana.
Yeah.
But rona a kere se re se bonang thata re le Batswana ke what is on site.
Yeah.
But by and large most projects Motswana has na go igaiwa ba di gaiwa ba bang. Not all of them.
Yeah.
Not all of them to be fair. Why buys?
Yeah.
Why ipolela gore itse re ke ta ke tse profit e la 3 meter.
Yeah.
Ebe ke tsa mo pateng a ba e latlhela mfano la reno
Yeah.
wena e dire ko
Yeah.
but mfano yana ke mo o tswang kae ke ba tswang ko ntle lona Batswana lo bona bone. That's what you see on site la
All
ntse
the
go
time.
tenya di hiwa Batswana o bona ile e se nnete on paper ke di neelwa 100% Batswana molao kana no ria
Yeah.
or anything that is coming out of government di neelwa 100% citizen owned companies.
I think you just said something really ke bona light ya mere ping. Ya gore the passports and the IDs come from somewhere else, but the jobs come from somewhere else as well. So there's no streamlining of activities. I want to get into Honore, you know, because the parastatali is so political and border aligned. How were you able to manage those relationships? Or weren't you able to?
Yeah, na le believe yela gore and I still do. Ya gore ra khona. I mean if you look and what I always did I ke bua le Bafana. Ke gore Bafana ke ra le ba setsana. Mo Spanish ke gore guys, look at us. Just look at us, the composition of us. It's all citizen.
Yeah.
And you know why it's all citizen? Because government was deliberate in saying we are going to localize these posts.
Yeah.
Again, it's all citizen. So why do I sit here? Why would I sit here and think, I can run this organization? Yet, run a construction company.
Yeah.
Well, there's a mismatch.
Yeah.
So now my attitude has always been, you know what? If I can do it, so can this other Motswana.
Yes, sir.
No,
Yes, sir. No, I feel it completely.
That is still my attitude.
Yes, sir. You were placed under under forced leave. Well, there was pending investigations in 2025. You are now not there anymore. It was later announced that there was a mutual separation. You know, when this happened, can you tell us in your own words what happened and how you experienced it? Because the X is coming down on Mr. Matenge. So
I can only say so much.
Yes, sir.
It wasn't there, no. But no, can you wait? Demonstrating effective from the 24th of October.
Welcome back.
Yes, demonstrating. I'm with the love of my life, which is architecture.
Yes,
and you can tell, you can see me.
I can see you are happy.
But this is This is something that we are all missing, and I don't know why Botswana remissed this thing. You know, the government, kana the corporation, a gona ope yo ke dengare ke sentse ke utswile a gona. Ha the suspension e nna. I think lona batho ba dipampi lona bo ska
no,
go ntle le wena o le moteng like that. You got excited ka this thing ya gore yeah bafana ba se. And it's understandable.
Yes, sir.
And then how ka bala di story ne ke di bala di story tse.
Yeah.
Mfazina ntarno ska bala di tse di ta go depress but ne ke di bala kore you'd see a headline how ro bala story ha senyalana.
Yeah.
And you know why it's senyalana? It's because the stuff that was said ke Botswana kana ke dipampiri tseo tse di kwadileng was absolutely I get to made up.
Yes, sir.
Kore o bona mo go teng go tswilwe brae e be ile ha le go tswile. Nobody has ever said to me nobody.
Yeah.
The organization that I work for.
Yes, sir.
Hey, let's be fair.
They haven't come out
They've
explicitly
never said
to say.
ke lo na ba no le reading gore no brae suspended wa bona.
Yeah.
E be lo kana a go nna le ditlagte mo corporation.
Yeah.
Kana anyway the head of the family has to take responsibility, and that's what it was.
Yeah.
That's what it was. But it got to a point where there was one particular pampiria online. It's a bit headline. No one. But the funny thing, all these things, the funny thing, if I tell you what I remember, the comment zalon, I remember the comment there. I remember that comment. And I'm like, this guy doesn't even know me.
Hey,
and
social media.
What does Lehodu look like? And then the other one, the other one in a stick out, there's just so much pettiness. People are not reading what is written and saying to themselves, you know what? Analyze and say, can't the mysteries because you'd see a headline with my picture on there.
Yeah.
Again. And then how about a story? Why you put out no, but headline the story say.
How do they match?
Yeah, Haditha Mela.
Yeah.
Yeah. Haditha Mela. You know. I've never had anybody and I don't think I should ever have anybody DCEC or anybody come to me and say, hey, because I'm not the kind of person.
So it was something completely. It was a mutual agreement. It was something completely away from foul play.
The mutual agreement obviously was Harlin thing, and I was out there in the cold for 5 months. 5 months is a long time to be out in the cold, and so obviously you get to a point and
so these things do affect the relationships.
Oh,
the
yes.
Newspapers, all of the stuff.
But I want to emphasize what all of that wasn't something seho nanle mokwalo o mkwaletsong go tere go sa spend ka o utswile nothing but lona with the excitement I go forensic and everything you then I don't know where it was sponsored from but what about go bapia le nnete wa bona but what is annoying ka gone ke gore lona ba dipampiri you didn't have the the right of reply. Mo botsa motho gore no ana re bona yana kana re utlwa yana go ntse yana no there's only one out of these newspapers one particular mokwadi kana reporter
journalist
that attempted to say to me and I said no I'll tell you this is an internal matter I can't talk to you
I can't talk about
it right now so even now when I talk about I have to be careful
no
it's ka na gore e ka re anong ke disparage for men they kana ke disparage my the organization that I work for.
Yes, sir.
And I also expect gore le bone e ska nna gore cause kare so far ha go no ke da bantha mona we pota ka a potle kwano a go re bolela gore zaka ile wa re ide ka hai wa bona.
So are you in agreement with the president gona gore batho ba ikwalla hela and are you thinking of suing because the president was very explicit about that gore nkare o ikwalla hela and guys should know gore there's also they're culpable for imprisonment. You know, if you're out here just running your mouth,
Yeah.
you should know you can end up in jail. So you've experienced what he's talking about, where people are just
exactly firsthand.
going after you.
I've experienced it firsthand.
With no truth, nothing based on the truth whatsoever.
Yeah, no.
Why don't you go for them?
Yeah. Or go for them. One of the things that one needs to be careful you sit back and think pampiri the line there's a thread the way by the look at it and then a thread but in the goodness of time the truth will come out.
Yes, sir.
I get.
Yes, sir. It always
in
comes
the goodness
out.
of time, the truth will come out. And when it does, that's when Eska go tle kwa no mpolelo ka ntse na go ede mona ha se mola o ntho ga o mpisa maina gore ke utswile kana le matwa le 200 kana le o no tsa ka mo gopolo wa go ira yalo like ya ka bona
Yeah.
wa thalo kra
That's a very mature way of approaching it.
I ke dumele go gore sontse re gogagane kgantela go ngwe le gogagana ai lo hella ile gore anong go nna maragaraga style wa thalo but now I would just like to say, for people that are going to be watching this, guys, let us be careful. Excited, break a story.
Yeah.
I want to cry because with your scar, I wasn't particularly worried for myself because I know myself.
Yeah.
But I was worried for my kids.
Yeah.
I was worried for my kids. My youngest kid is 8 years old.
Yeah.
And Moholo is 20.
Yeah.
And then Moholo Mungu is 32.
Yeah.
My oldest is 41.
Yeah. Saba Mr.
Yeah, no. Baba Bediba. Omungu ko UK so hana na kulenna. Baba Bediba of 41 le 20. Bambutsa ba bua le nna dedi what's going on? And I felt for them. Because ha gongwe o tla ba le mo strateng. A tshwere sa se tshwereng and because lo kwa le utse e be go tia ke ene wa ra go le go and then some harm e tla go mo diragala gore a gongwe ka tla ke ipotsa gore a me bone ba fana ba ba kolang di utse le ba ba commenta kana bona ba commenta but for me the good thing gore a good majority of the comments where people ba ba nkitsi bare not dealing. We know this guy.
Yes, sir.
Baba sa nkitsi, baba dilile lenna. And they would say it's not like we're not tempted.
Yes, sir.
Kana go nna dilo di envelope di a gore gore no we get it. How about gore nna le wena re kgaogane. O dire one mogopolo. Ba tlhaloganye. That's who I am.
Yes, sir.
And I am that because of the background e ke nang le one. Out here, just sitting here and talking to Scar is a big achievement for me. Because it's for me, it's a big achievement. And if Olumoton Signalo, could how what to see a Gideoniana, Zahori, Takizaki, Takir. And so the same way, people Halu reads Scar, Robana Mostrati.
Yes, sir.
You see a guy that dresses well and looks well and everything. But guess what? I will so interview 23 years.
Yes, sir.
23 years old.
Yes, sir.
My oldest car, my newest car is 9 years old.
Yes, sir.
My new 9 years.
Yes, sir.
If you follow again 12 years.
Yeah.
If you follow again 23.
Yeah.
I am that kind of person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because everything that I do every day, having been out here ko primary ne ke balla ka candle miki ke spinale majite ba ileng gore ba nna across the road ha molong hale e bi da out here ona le room ke mona a ile go dala go ga bone lo dala go room ya ga wena o nna mo two room ska two
Yes, sir.
kana a ke two room ha ke 2 bedroom ka re 2 room literally 2 room di room tse pedi bet ka se ka re simolotse di room tse pedi ele box e kana I think it's 9 meters that way and about just 3 meters that way ha ga re be kgago so for enough o tsena ka le badile le one e be go nna le an arch wo tsena ka di first di tharo first re go pele e one tse di go morago tsa di room tsele di two That's where I started.
Jesus
Wa ntlhaloga o botla o mpolelela gore nka tla ka nna le go dula ao every step what I do about the girl for now when I was like in heaven every time I don't know you when I ranger you say I was like heaven to me and then I go to the UK hey I'm like it's heaven was heaven to me and then I come home and I'm an architect I'm it's the family, the first of the family, and the wider family, the architects, the chartered architect, everybody's proud. I could be I am not.
You're not that.
I am not about that.
Yeah, and I appreciate you talking about it as well.
I never was. You could say about panda, a lady, especially a lady, because a lady can na arukwanze, as you say, Banama Baha by the 5 kilo one. About Sabaha Muhulu and Nako Kumzans. I want to get about from the border. How do you want to Kumzans? So, Omuara Sala for the Rita. So, I don't share Mobutua. I do matter no. These kids, I don't want them to go and live in South Africa. I can get a good deal. I do not know, but what I go in the future. And this week, the parents say, "Need to more standard 6 of I want less than 6. So, how can a lot of us, but a but in terms of integrity and honesty,
morals and principles.
You can't
no be shaky
without because we are not about that. Because with the little that we have achieved. Heaven for us because of where we come from.
Yes, sir.
I want to cry. My age mates, whether it's across the road, counter road Kasi nene across counter road. I was not Ronaldo go phase what?
But she was phase 1.
No, the retailer.
BKT.
The retailer. It's like hetang go partially.
Yeah.
It was in the tsela ya bohelo ga bo rona ga hella go no partial gore partially in the partial no gona le big body go the partial development of lot so and so and so very is a partial the other side go na le ya Sladen the company Sladen Peter Sladen International le one be go bitsa ka go Molapo side go bitsa Sladen that was the end of Gaborone one tlhaloganya so when you've grown around that tota what motivates you is going to be different from what motivates a lot of people.
Yes, sir.
Because you're motivated by what you've seen. We've seen Gaborone grow. And Hahungwe, but Habara Talokanya Harere, Gaborone, Oholets Mohorona, Hara Holama Gaborone.
Yes, sir.
And, I'm speaking with passion, corruption and things like that, because how can I grand? Eh, le malait ni le ditouta bona ne le ditouta ka gore bogolo go la ka ne gore ke mo di shopong general dealer o nna ha o bo reka mo countereng ile ka kwa o bo tsova o go ntse di supermarket self service ai shoutaka na go ne le malait ne go na le selo go go pass dice ba pass dice ne go to go te go wa go eta mthako e menga khorong a katile o heta ka yena a sa go bona o tsentse dilwana ka hate but we were kids.
It was a child.
You know what I mean? If there's any naughtiness, it would be that. But other than that, nah.
I want to then, I guess one of our closing, because I got to shut it down. My closing questions will be around, we have a new government that's come in, and this is supposed to be a new Botswana. We're looking forward to it. What do you think about the Bonno housing program? As someone who's in the industry, development, infrastructure, having worked with the BHC as well, what do you think the Bonno housing program is?
The Bonno housing program is an excellent idea as a program, because how we level lesson, how na tsela level wa bona o sa tseo ke my good. It actually is empowering to Botswana ba ileng gore ka mogedi ya bone e ko tlase. I get it's in Boruna. I'll give myself as an example.
Yes, sir.
Or it's in Boruna ba ileng gore o ka reka le hatsi wa ikagela banka ya go reetsa kana o beile madinyana ka ga mosamo a pension o ikagela but go ne ba tsona ba ileng gore kamogedi ya bone ha re wa go bankeng banka ya mo lebella ha o kwa khona a kere me ha o lebella the program e le ka gore e atolose gore e tsenye batho ba ileng gore ba bantsi go heta ya ka go ntse and that alone hela go tsenya batho ba bantsi that alone is an excellent thing to do
Yes, sir.
o bo lebella gape le the way go teng what we used to call 2.5 yasha again has been sort of like rejigged to be 3 different plans so no gore dina le incrementalness or go incremental housing wa ntshaloga e leng gore o kgona gore ha o agile e be re ha go nna botoka cause kada tota mo botshelong o sentse re o nne wa ka ntse re go tla nna botoka ha go nna botoka o tsenya makotswana a mabedi tlhauthi yaka o go rulela and you've got a bigger house wa ntshaloga so e tla sengwa ke rona batho a kere ka gore re di shaka out there wena o ra kontraka wa ka ntse re no I know he give go ja di meter wa bona me le gore tota as a program I don't think it should be a program as a contractor or as an investor coming in the meters that they so ha di go godimo because you're building your margins are nominal
you're doing for the country you know I was on our way level and I think I wish for a time like that where we were all trying to help each other uplift each other you know so I hope lo neta level yalo but khona no nyana go re dutse ngo ka itlhela re batla go we find fault even before anything starts
no gape gantsi go tshwana dio tsa di itsha he gantsi ska re tsosa moduma o tsusiwa ke nna le wena a o itse re nna ke na le hase go ga rona go mateng le ke di hilwe mahala ke di hilwe mahala ke mme ala ha o ka re gona ana go re gona le ditsa go odi o itse re ke a go fola I feel entitled go ke a go fola le nna ka re odi a ke re go hile gaps go batla go so by and large na ke feel gore gona le ha ileng gore tota in terms of dio tsa bo land audit and things like that di sontse re gongwe di goroga ka speed because wa go tshela gore backlog e leng teng ha gongwe ke batho ba leng tota mme motho ene tota yene motho ene o kwa tswang teng is properly housed akere go re hela mo toropong rotlhe re batla re gravitate towards toropo because ke go nang go eleng gore gongwe le hura le tla tswa teng in terms of you know what we think going forward and because re mo toropong re batla gore rotlhe re nne le ntlo mo toropong mme tota hela ha re wa lebella o boela o itse re motho go teng matenge mme tota go matenge kana o nna mo haisi motho wa bona ke tle go kgwana di product tse leng gore go nka be ke emela go morago ke le motswana ela nna ka bona ke emela ha morago nyana gore nya mema ba ba iseng go ba nne le haele ha ba ntse beteng ba tsene pele but no we don't do that
capitalism
no I come in le nna ke no le nna ke motswana e bila ga ke se ke hiwe I am entitled
definitely
to state land I'm entitled to le hatsela go tla teng yes ke na le lone but ya no ke batla la mo
ga borone ya no
me wa itse go ke nna teng star
Hi, Mr. Matenge, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I wish we had more time. I'm actually running out of battery. Most of the ones that I wanted to ask you about. And thank you for hanging out with us. I don't know, in closing, you know, what are you planning for the holidays?
I'm going to talk about work, community work. I'm already doing community work. You might look at me and say, okay, you're going to community. But I just want to give back to the community, what the community gave me. It molded me. I'm what I am because of the community. So I'm doing, you know, a couple of jobs in different communities.
Okay.
It's in Nkaelang here. In the, re iphandela mo kgaolong mme re ha re iphandela mo kgaolong e be re lebella gape gore di dingwe can be replicated mo dikgaolong tse dingwe and the one thing se leng gore ke a go se dire ka di holiday ke a go ikopanya le mo parliament wa gore ke re mo le ke ra utshiaka I've got
I'm
no
doing-
interest. I've got zero
Yeah.
interest in politics.
Yes, sir.
I'm 63. I'm too old.
Yes, sir.
Gore nka go thola ke go gagagana ke ro garogana le batho ka di-mic, no. Wa bona? But ha go ha re o dira dilo mo community. Ai ba fana ba go le ba re no mfana o batla go tsaya.
But that's always the case, though. I
No, ke ba fana go ba batla go tsaya kgaolo.
I know,
For sure.
but at least you're going to go and tell him,
gonna
yo,
talk to my guy, get out here. I'm not even interested.
I'm not about that life.
I'm not about that. I'm born a Musaki.
I can buy my own GMC. Okay, bad joke. And that is how we come to the end of our show. Big Dilly, thank you so much, Prop Man.
Ska. In a year's time, we won't be
No, we'll make sure.
Especially with regard to empowering
Yes, sir.
young Batswana.
Yes, sir.
Now I'm about that.
Definitely, and
Yeah,
and I'm sure they got proper advice, guys. Try and get some practical skills in drawing. Fancy designs alone is not gonna, get you the check that you want. Okay,
that's the thing.
and with that, guys, that's the end of our show. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. I'm SCAR. Catch you next week, Wednesday. We out. Peace.
People of different identities. Podcast with BHC.